Introduce you to our next facilitator or presenter for the next 20, 30, the time that it takes, minutes to walk you through our structure for Love 2020. And it's my privilege to introduce to you Jim Morgan, who's the CEO and president of Meet the Need. And I'm going to talk about that a little more as time goes on. But more importantly, he's a part of the leadership helping service Love 2020, and he has this brilliant gift of taking ideas, thought, concept, plans, and creating it into a construct or a framework that we can easily work from and to guide us forward. And we've spent a number of weeks and perhaps even months on thinking through what this would look like, and Jim keeps filtering and distilling and defining it. And there'll be no one better than Jim to present that. And then I'd also, as we come to the end of this session, I'm going to interview him a little bit on the role and the function and the capabilities of Meet the Need, which is really an infrastructure, a platform where opportunities and needs and people mobilized can connect their activity, their care activity can be well managed and coordinated. But will you welcome with me, and let's give Jim a big hand this afternoon.
Well, good afternoon. I've got the privilege of the post-launch audience. So do you have coffee? Is coffee ready? Is it all supplied? But I'm going to keep you excited and interested, I hope, so stay tuned. But like you, it's a privilege, I think, to be here, and I consider it a privilege to be here and be part of Love 2020. You know, like you, I believe this vision is very critical, and the mission here is very important. Like you, I think that the time is now. I mean, do you agree for Love 2020 to happen, the time is now? Let's not wait till 2020. I think that, and this is just an opinion, but I do think that the world, the secular world, the unchurched world, had a different view of Christians than they used to have. And if we're going to chip away at that perception, if it's not getting better, we've got to do that through praying, caring, and sharing. And so I believe in what we're doing here. I believe that I should spend, and we should all spend in time invested and involved in what we're doing here. So thank you all for being here. You've all traveled to be here. You can't beat the trip that I had in terms of what it took to get here. Detroit, Chicago, I think Norm mentioned before, but you all did a lot to be here, and you're taking time out of your busy schedules. So thanks for being part of what we're doing here. If you know my background at all, if you've heard the Meet the Need story at all, you know that I came from management consulting, strategy consulting with the big 5 consulting firms, working with Fortune 500 companies on big strategic and process types of issues. And if you think about Meet the Need, if you know Meet the Need at all, you know that that involves a lot of strategic planning as well to come up with solutions that will unite and mobilize the body of Christ to serve our community. It's a big problem, the communication gaps that cities have. So in Chicago, I made the mistake of speaking up when it was nearly done and saying, Paul and Phil, I think that there's some things we can do here that would put more structure and organization and actions around this incredible vision. And so when you speak up like that, you may get enlisted. And we talk about that term enlisting, and Phil will talk about that more tomorrow. But I got enlisted. So I spent the last few months working along, and very happy to do so, with Phil and Paul and Norm, thinking through strategy and process and structure and actions, kind of gearing towards today, and rolling out to you what we've developed, our milestones, our framework for thinking about and coordinating our activities within each sphere. So let me actually go to the first slide. I think I have this clicker. This should work. Should being the operative term. All right, I got to click that way. So the point of this, again, take this great vision, Love 2020, and put some strategy, some action, some structure, more around that. In Chicago, I thought that was a bit of a gap, and I know that you all are action-oriented people. We all are doing great things for the Lord, but you also have busy schedules, and you want to make sure you're doing things that are truly productive and working towards the goal and the vision of Love 2020. We did work for large corporations around strategy. We kind of developed a strategy map, right? You'd have kind of the overall vision, mission, strategy, key performance indicators, goals, around that, and actions, initiatives that contribute towards all that. So you've got a chain reaction there that all funnels back and all works back toward accomplishing that vision. So, and in business, I think I've got that screen up. So in business, I'm going to look over here, the usual. So in business and in ministry, ministry is no different. We don't treat ministry differently because it's not, profit making. We actually treat it as more important because, souls are at stake here, lives are at stake here, so we treat it as more important. So, but we know in the business world that, mission without milestones often, wanders off course, off path. Dreams without deadlines can lack action. Vision without goals usually are not achieved. And so we're trying to bring that kind of thinking here. So if business uses those kind of principles, if business lives by that and dies by that, we want to bring at least a measure of that planning into this exercise. At the same time, we are in ministry. Being in ministry, we have to think in terms of more important things than profit, than making money. And we also defer to the Lord's guidance. We don't think we have all the answers. We don't pretend to be smart enough. The Lord gave us gifts and talents that we hope to use for His will and for His kingdom, but we don't pretend to have all the answers. We have to rely on Him, lean on Him for answers. So we put our trust in Him. What that also means is that the Lord is going to change some things about how this whole vision, Love 2020 plays out. And we're open to that. That's going to happen. So this is not meant to be set in stone, concrete. Don't get that kind of impression. When it comes to these milestones again and coordinating across the spheres, because we have some spheres here that are fast-moving, fast-paced. We have some that are more nascent, getting started now and getting rolling. So we have to, but we need to coordinate at some level, right? It does help to sync up. And there's a few reasons why. One is that to the outside world, movements don't look random. They don't look accidental. There's something going on behind the scenes that's happening that they can't see all the strategies and ideas behind it, but it's transpiring. It's happening behind the scenes. It's building. It's growing. And at the naked eye, something's happening that they can't see all the details behind. So we want to look, coordinated and to work together here. Second of all, to Mission America Coalition, we want this to look like it's a team effort, a true team. But if it's fragmented, and we have 41 or so spheres, I lose track of the number, but we have a lot of spheres, and with them all moving at different paces, doing different things, it can look disjointed, it can look fragmented. And so I think to Mission America Coalition, we would like to see this be more of a coordinated, on the same, similar kind of schedule type of activity. And third, for each of you, when you get communications back from Mission America, because it's going to ramp up, right? In the next few months and weeks and years, the communications from Mission America Coalition back to you, as they get information, feedback, lessons learned, resources back from you, the field, it's going to be poured back out to you. If what comes back to you represents somewhat where you are, that makes it more helpful, more relevant for where you are in the process and for what you're doing. So at the same time, we understand that these are guidelines and you should go at your own pace, at your own, as fast as you want to go, just not slower. I'm just kidding. But you can get ahead if you want to. But anyway, so we're going to coordinate that kind of thing, but you can go at your own pace. We're not trying to restrict that kind of thing. So I'm sure you're asking now, so what are the milestones? Okay, Jim, enough of the up front. So what are the milestones we've led? And again, this is not, I'm here presenting this because I was asked to present this. I've been working as a team with Norm, Phil, Paul. This is coming from them. This is not something I came up with. But so the major milestones in terms of the first stage, and you can see the dates up there. Hopefully you can see it well enough on the screen. But running from last year, September, I think it was Chicago was September. Is that right? Something like that? Okay. Time flies. So through to June, this is this phase one piece, which we're talking about, and what we're doing right now is enlisting support, enlisting team members, finding leadership. We're trying to organize and plan and get people involved in being part of our team. That's this first phase. So what there are around these, you're going to see this in a few minutes, there are goals that are set, and you're going to be working through with my help and with Norm's help later on, and Phil's, is working through these goals and for what your sphere has done, wants to do, will be doing in the future towards these goals. So we have this till June of 14 initial phase that there's tasks or goals that have been set for our spheres to work towards. but it's mostly around enlisting people and planning and organizing. These are kind of general summaries of this. So the second piece is gaining momentum. So from the July time frame this year to July the next year, for 1 year, the idea is to build momentum. And what that means is the tools, the teams, the team members, the influencers, who they are. We're going to do an exercise tomorrow that I'll help lead as well with Norm, where we're going to talk more about who you touch, who your sphere touches and who you work with. So within your sphere of influence, there are influencers. And if you're at a tipping point, you know about how things can work. And Meet the Needs is an example of how this happened too. But we want to rally influencers, begin to communicate, enlist more people, build tools and design them that will help us to communicate with our networks. The third piece, and this is it's relevant that we're here right now in the Billy Graham Library on this campus, because my hope's an example of this idea that came to us, the Lord gave to us around going public. My hope had a day where they said we're gearing towards this day. All the preparatory work is gearing up towards this launch date. Similarly, we have a date of July 15th to December 15th. It's not a day, it's a period, because you can't launch this kind of thing, or you can't, I shouldn't say launch, it's already been launched, but you can't go public with this until in just one day or a weekend. So this is working towards these first two steps, working towards a go public, where all the communication channels we have at our disposal, the tools we have at our disposal, the things we developed to get the word out about Love 2020 and enlist and engage people is going to be pushed out to the marketplace, to all your spheres and influencers. The third piece here is to extend and advance. So this is the fourth piece. This runs from January 16 to December of 18. And the idea here is, okay, we've gone public, but now we're learning. Now we're hearing things from the marketplace. We're understanding better what's working and not working. We're reporting back to Mission America Coalition. They're reporting back out to you and saying, here's what's effective and not so effective. So you're getting feedback from them, providing feedback to them, and we're learning and tracking, reporting, and it's really a well-functioning machine where you feel connected, and you're also seeing the progress being made. And the fifth step here is achieve and sustain, where this is the last kind of phase, January 19th to December of 2020, kind of 2-year phases here, where we're hoping by that point, you've largely realized the vision for what you're trying to accomplish, and overall, by working together here, we're seeing fruit being produced across a wide band, hopefully everybody, the vision being accomplished, of Christ followers, prayer, care, share, lifestyle, Christians, all being there for people who don't know the Lord. And so, celebrate, and we still build on the success. We don't want to stop there. Even in 2020, we're not stopping there. There's more work to be done. This should be a movement that lasts even a lot longer than that. I heard, in fact, Paul mentioned one time that 2020 didn't just mean the year 2020. I think it meant 2020 vision or things like that too. It's not just tied to a year where we say, mission accomplished, we're done, let's stop now. We all hope, right, that we've built momentum and carried it forward to the point where we can find it pretty easy to keep that all going in the future. A couple quick notes before we keep moving on to more details, but the vision of Love 2020 is achievable. It is doable if you look at this track. If we stopped and said, okay, here's the vision, Love 2020, here it is, and get to work on some questions and some actions and start doing things, it doesn't look so achievable. It's a big picture kind of thing. When you look at it in terms of framework and milestones and accomplishments and how we track towards working together and coordinating towards Love 2020, it actually, in the year 2020, it does seem more achievable. And the fact is, in the business world, in the management consulting world where I lived for so long, these large initiatives, these multinational or even just national, large corporate initiatives, they had all this. And the goals did get accomplished. We did achieve the goals of those Fortune 500 companies. It happened over and over and over again. When they didn't do these things, it didn't occur. I'm not saying this is the business world. This is not. But some principles do apply. And the Lord did prepare us, through the business world to bring things over that are relevant, here. I've mentioned a lot of these things before, but I'll move on because Phil's going to give me the hook here. Norm said 20 minutes, but Phil's prepared with a hook. So let me keep moving. So let's get to phase one now. So this first piece, it only goes to June 14, so we're moving pretty quick here. These next few weeks are pretty important. So, and you're going to see this on the handouts that will come in about 5 minutes. You're going to see handouts come out to you that are the worksheets. We're going to work down the path of phase one and phase two. In these next hour and a half, 2 hours, we'll finish getting through phase one and phase two for what you've done, what needs to be done towards the goals that we're going to show you for these different milestones for phase one and phase two. But phase one is essentially, are things like finalize the leadership, confirm engagement of 8 to 10 more, or 8 to 10 team members total. You look at develop a strategy and communications plan, because without that, how do you touch base with your team members? How do you touch base with your influencers? How do you touch base with your larger network? It's challenging. So it's online and offline communications. Develop that plan. You'll see that coming to you in a minute here too. Moving ahead, so any kind of promotional materials and tools your group thinks you need to have and develop, plan those out, plot those out as well as part of this. And then begin sharing stories, successes, resources, things you found back with Mission America, as well. And one point Phil told me to make, and I want to, do this because he said to do it. So, and I agree with it, is that there's no question. This is an early stage. We're very early stage here in terms of Love 2020 in general. So no question is too simple. We're all early stage here. We're going to learn from each other, and no one's that far ahead. Although we heard from a few groups before that they're doing really well and making great progress, and that's fantastic to hear. For those that are ahead, I would say act as kind of coaches to those who may not be there and help them along, help them progress, to be kind of a coach for those around you, even here in Charlotte. Let me touch briefly on phase two. I'm going to kind of go fast in these next couple, but phase two, so June 14, July 14, after that to July 15, it's soon, right? It's coming up very quickly here. So we don't have a lot of time there. The second piece is about, gaining momentum and building towards that going public. And to me, this is where I think that Love 2020 in my consulting kind of career, for what it's worth, to me, this is where Love 2020 succeeds or fails, is in this next piece, is that when in a game, you've seen, I'm a Denver Broncos fan, so I saw momentum slip from the very first snap, and I was on a plane. This is terrible planning. Speaking of, I'm a better planner usually than this, but we had planned the trip for me to go to San Diego to meet with Sam Williams and Vision San Diego, and NAM is behind a thing we're doing out there, some work out there, and so I'm booked on a flight that leaves Tampa at 4:30. Game's at 6:30. So it was actually kind of merciful because the game was so bad, and being a Denver fan, I ended up watching on the plane on an iPad and catching the game. But if I'd been back at home resting comfortably, it would have been a miserable game. So, but you saw momentum slip from that very first snap, right? It goes through Peyton's hands out of the end zone, and it was all downhill from there. You thought it couldn't get worse, but it did. I'm sorry. I shouldn't beleg at this point. It hurt. It really hurt. Hey, can I get an amen? So, I do think, though, that this next phase, this phase two, will determine if this thrives or flounders, because we're going to build momentum. It's going to happen. We're going to see it happening. We're going to see the energy growing and building, or we're not. And it's not going to be good if it's not building and growing like that. So when you're in that phase, you're talking about moving from design to execution. Planning, all the planning in the world doesn't help you one iota if you haven't acted on those plans. So going from design to execution, planning to implementation, that's the key, right? And that going public will be easy because we'll already have the tools in place, the methodology in place, the plans in place. It'll be a natural segue to the next piece. So that's important there. All right, so phases 3 through 5, real quick. I'm going to blow through this, but that's 18 months we talked about right now, right? Phases 1 and 2, that's 18 months through December of, well, it's a little more than that, but December of 15. The world's changing very fast. I don't know if you've heard about the 3D printing coming out and what it could decimate the supply chain, and you're talking about employment problems now. But for consumers, one day it's going to be pretty interesting that you can actually download the scheme for any kind of an item and have that created for you on your 3D digital, printer at your house, one day. So things are moving fast. So companies work in 2 to 3 year planning horizons. I think it's similar for ministry. So we're going to stop there and not pretend to lay out for you all the goals that you should have for phases 3 through 5. We just can't assume that. We're going to get there. The Lord's also moving very, very quickly. Am I being cut off?
No, you're not being cut off. I just wanted you to I can't wait to respond, but keep going.
All right. The hook. Phil sent him over here. So it's moving too fast to pretend that we have all the answers. So we're going to wait on that, see what happens. We're going to learn from you. You're going to learn from us. We're going to figure that out as we go along a little bit. We have the broad milestones. We have some general goals. We'll fill in the blanks as we go on. I talked about that. So summary and next steps. We're going to get to what Norm is getting to next. So no matter where you are in the process right now, one thing I want to leave with you today, and we're going to talk more about tomorrow, is that your sphere is very critical. We're going to map out tomorrow during one of our phases, the engage phase. I'm going to help facilitate the way that when you look at all the spheres added up, and you look at the people groups that are being touched, and the entities and the organizations and the influencers that are being touched, if one sphere is missing from that, that's masses of people, millions of people being missed, potentially. So we all play a key role here. So no matter where you are, what you're doing is very, very important. Also, what's very important is these next few weeks. What you do here this weekend or this week, and what you do these next few weeks is critical. And taking action when this Charlotte's over and we all go back home, and I go back through, I don't know where I'm going back home. I hope I get home quicker than I got here. But the next few weeks are critical. I want to leave that with you as well. And finally, I don't want to give the wrong impression again that these milestones are to-dos. One thing I feel very strongly about, I mentioned to Tim Krause in our group earlier, is that, if this is more things on your plate, if this is more stuff for you to do, I don't think we all have, I'm working 80 hours a week. I don't know about you. I hope you're not, but I'm working that kind of hours. And I don't have more time for more to-dos. I honestly believe that Love 2020 and what you do as a sphere member or leader is going to contribute towards your ministry, whatever you're doing today. And that as you do work on action items, as you meet people, as you network, as you build this, and you have influencers that now know who you are because you've enlisted them and engaged them to do work with you, that your network, your territory is going to expand. And that it's going to contribute towards the work that you do, and the actions that you take will also contribute to your ministry as well. So it's not like to-dos for you that are new or that are not going to contribute to what you're already trying to get accomplished. And also the milestones are here to serve you. This is not about you having to do things again. It's about serving you and helping you through the milestones. So let me introduce the next steps. Do you want to hand out the worksheets? Doing that now? Okay. So we're going to get to actually doing things and stop listening to me wax on. So there are two pieces to this. The phase 1 piece. So phase 1 already began, September, October of 13, right? We already started that. So there are things that you've already done. And so we're going to ask you, and the math, we're going to say equation. I'm an old finance guy, so I can't help myself. But the equation is you're looking at your broad goals, the goals that in phase 1 that we have, minus what you've already done. You've already done some things. So let's take account of that. Let's not discount that. Let's account for that. But that's going to equal whatever needs to still get done. To reach those goals, you've already done some things. What's left to be done, that's the additional things to take care of. And you'll see this in your worksheet. It's all color-coded too. In phase 2, it hasn't started yet. That's starting in June. Let's go ahead and start to plan now while we're here together in Charlotte. And so the equation's a little bit different. We haven't done anything yet. There's nothing to subtract off what our goals are. So the broad goals is the current plans to accomplish the things you already had in mind for what you wanted to accomplish in that next kind of time for the next year beyond the summer, plus additional things your team thinks of that you need to do during the course probably of next year. If you want to think of it in terms of things you want to do in the next 6 months following June, like July to December, and then look at the rest of next year as the additional things to take care of next year, then look at it that way. You can change your math and use that equation instead. So with that, let me turn it over to
Okay.
Norm.
Jim, I'm going to ask you a quick question. One of the things we're going to zero in on is the objectives. And give us just a good objective, because sometimes in a ministry context, we can talk about reaching everybody all the time forever. And give us a little bit of a define what a good objective would be.
Let me, if I may, bear with me, let me switch over to, I'm going to pull up the worksheet just so you see that.
Yeah, that third box down, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm looking at here is, phase one, you can see the worksheet. Now, y'all have those now?
Yeah, they do. They just don't have the color on it. So your
they're not-
front page is that page.
Right, so the first 3 pages you're going to see, and it ends with a few others, because you can add your own goals or objectives that you want to add. But you're going to see there, to answer your question, Norm, the objectives are laid out in the left-hand column. Those are the goals. Objectives is a similar term. It's this, same, we use the term goals here. But there are goals around how many leaders to have, members to have, kinds of communications you should be, putting out, how you should be reporting back to Mission America Coalition on what you've done, resources and tips back to them, lessons learned. So those are goals that we've laid out for you. Now there's also, like I said, there's about 4 other kind of categories to add your own things. And feel free to go offline. That sheet's got limited boxes and space. I don't know how small you write. If it's like me, then you could fit a novel into those, but you couldn't read any of it. But you may need paper offline. Feel free to go offline, use separate paper. But those are objectives in the left-hand column, and then you'll see the columns for the math I talked about with additional actions and what you've done so far.
Okay.